My husband celebrated his victory in court, holding up the patent documents like a trophy while I walked away with nothing but legal fees and a broken heart. He laughed with his mother in the marble hallway, calling me a failed lab rat for trying to claim the revolutionary anti-aging formula I had spent 5 years of my life creating in our basement. Arthur smirked as he texted his mistress, telling her to get ready for the launch party tonight that would make them billionaires. He thought he had taken everything from me. He thought he was the smartest man in the room. But here is the secret they didn't know. The formula I allowed them to win in court had a microscopic flaw. A flaw that I had discovered 3 years ago and buried in the data. A flaw that would only reveal itself exactly 1 hour after application when exposed to the heat of stage lights. And tonight, they were going to put it on their faces live on national television. Hey friends, before we dive into this captivating story, please take a couple of seconds to like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. And don't forget to share your thoughts on this story. I'd really love to hear your opinion. Alright, grab a cup of coffee, and let's begin. The District Court of New York was freezing that morning. I don't know if it was the air conditioning blasting in October, or just the sheer coldness emanating from the man sitting at the table next to me. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with a maddening, rhythmic hum, illuminating the smug satisfaction on Arthur's face. He sat there, perfectly groomed in a $3,000 Italian suit that I had paid for, tapping his expensive pen against the mahogany table. Beside him sat his lawyer, a shark of a man named Mr. Gorski, who charged more per hour than I used to make in a month. Judge Sterling, a man with thick glasses and a demeanor that suggested he just wanted to go to lunch, shuffled the massive stack of papers on his bench. The sound of dry paper on wood echoed in the silent courtroom. My stomach was in knots. I looked at my own lawyer, a public defender who looked overworked and exhausted. We both knew the odds. We both knew that in the American legal system, the person with the most money usually wins, and Arthur had drained our joint accounts months ago to hire his legal dream team. Based on the employment contract signed by Mrs. Sophie Vance 3 years ago, the judge announced, his voice monotone, and reviewing the evidence regarding corporate resources, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff. My heart stopped. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. All intellectual property created during the marriage, the judge continued, reading from the final decree, including the chemical formula known internally as Project Eterna, is hereby declared the sole property of the primary investor and corporate entity, Mr. Arthur Vance. My lawyer tried to object, standing up half-heartedly. Your Honor, I must reiterate. My client developed this formula in her personal time. The corporate resources cited were a laptop she bought herself. The lab was in their basement. Overruled, the judge said, not even looking up. He banged his gavel, a sharp wooden crack that sounded like a gunshot ending my career. The patent rights remain with Mr. Vance. The non-compete clause is upheld. Ms. Vance is barred from working in cosmetic chemistry for a period of 5 years. Case dismissed. Arthur stood up immediately, buttoning his jacket. He didn't even look at me. He turned his head to the first row of the gallery. There, sitting like a queen on a throne, was Kylie, his marketing director. His mistress. The woman who had been wearing my jewelry and sleeping in my bed for the last 6 months. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that hugged her body, a dress that cost more than my annual research budget. She squealed, a high-pitched sound of victory, and rushed past the bailiff to hug him. "We did it, baby," she whispered, but in the quiet courtroom, it sounded like a shout. "We're going to be rich. It's actually ours." "It was always ours," Arthur said, smoothing her hair. She was just holding it hostage. I sat there frozen. 5 years. 5 years of waking up at 4 a.m. to check bacterial cultures. 5 years of smelling like sulfur and ethanol. 5 years of missing birthdays, skipping vacations, pouring every ounce of my soul into a cream that could actually help people, that could regenerate skin cells without side effects. And now, with one strike of a wooden hammer, it belonged to the man who couldn't even spell hyaluronic acid without spell check. I packed my bag slowly. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cocktail of rage and adrenaline. I walked out into the marble corridor. I wanted to disappear, to run home and hide under the covers, but there was only one exit. Arthur and his mother, Margaret, were already there, standing near the elevators celebrating. Margaret was on the phone, her voice loud and grating. "Yes, tell the caterers to double the champagne order," she was saying. "We have a massive victory to celebrate." The judge crushed her. Just crushed her. She saw me approaching and covered the mouthpiece, a cruel smile spreading across her face. Margaret had never liked me. To her, I was a nerd, a bore, someone who spent too much time with books and not enough time at the salon. "Well, Sophie," she sneered, looking me up and down with disdain. "I hope you finally learned your lesson. You were always just a glorified assistant. You thought you were the brains? Without Arthur's money, without his vision, your little science experiments are worthless." I stopped in front of them. Arthur had his arm around Kylie, looking at me with pity. That was the worst part. Not hate, but pity. As if I were a wounded animal he had to put down. "Arthur," I said quietly. My voice felt foreign tight. "Please listen to me. I know you hate me right now. I know you think you won. But you cannot launch that formula tonight." Arthur laughed. A deep, mocking laugh that echoed off the high ceilings. "Here we go. The desperation phase. It's not stable," I continued, letting my voice tremble just enough to sound pathetic. "The batch you seized from the lab, the files on the hard drive. I hadn't finished the stress testing. It reacts to heat. It reacts to oxidation." "Nice try, Sophie," Arthur said, stepping closer to intimidate me. "You're just jealous. You want to sabotage my big moment because you lost. The formula is perfect. Kylie has been using the samples for a week. Look at her skin." He gestured to Kylie, who posed, tilting her chin up. Her skin was indeed glowing, smooth as porcelain. "Those were the prototypes," I said, pleading. "I made those by hand. But the mass production batch, the one you sent to the factory based on the file, it has a different preservative ratio. Please, Arthur. If you release it, people could get hurt." "Save it." Arthur cut me off, his eyes cold. "You're pathetic. You're trying to scare me into delaying the launch, so you can file an appeal. It won't work. The investors are coming tonight. The press is coming. We are launching Eterna, and we are going to make billions." He leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear. "Go find a job teaching high school chemistry, Sophie. That's about your speed. Leave the business to the adults." He turned his back on me and walked away, his entourage trailing behind him like a royal procession. They were heading straight to the grand ballroom at the Plaza Hotel for the event of the century. The launch of Eterna. The cream that promised to erase 20 years in 20 minutes. I watched them go. I stood there until the elevator doors closed, hiding their laughing faces. And then the tears stopped. The trembling stopped. I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and walked out of the courthouse into the bustling city streets of Manhattan. I didn't go home to cry. I didn't go to a bar to drown my sorrows. I walked 2 blocks east and entered a small, unassuming coffee shop directly across the street from the Plaza Hotel. I ordered a black coffee and a croissant. I took a seat by the window, the one with the perfect view of the red carpet being rolled out across the street. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 4 p.m. The event started at 5 p.m. The main presentation was at 6 p.m. I opened my laptop and logged into a secure server. I looked at the files, the real files. You see, Arthur was right about one thing. He was the businessman, and I was the scientist. But he forgot the first rule of science. Verify your data. When I realized 6 months ago that Arthur was sleeping with Kylie, when I found the receipts for the diamond earrings and the hotel rooms, I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I went to the lab. I knew he was planning to steal the company. He had been pressuring me to document the formula, to upload it to the company server for safekeeping. So I did. I uploaded a formula. It looked exactly like Eterna. It smelled like Eterna. It felt like Eterna. But it wasn't Eterna. It was a variation I had created by accident 2 years ago. We called it Batch 42 in my lab notes. Batch 42 was a fascinating chemical failure. It contained a specific peptide chain that was highly unstable when exposed to oxygen and temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, like the heat of stage lights, or the natural warmth of human skin when a person gets nervous or excited. When applied, batch 42 worked miracles for exactly 45 to 60 minutes. It tightened the skin, smoothed wrinkles, and gave a radiant glow. But then, the oxidation process would hit a critical mass. The peptides would break down into a sulfur-based compound. In simple terms, it turned into a potent, semi-permanent dye, while releasing a harmless but incredibly foul-smelling gas. I sipped my coffee and watched the limousines start to arrive. "Oh, it's working all right," I whispered to myself. I opened the live stream of the event on my phone. It was already trending on Twitter. #EternalLaunch. The production value was insane. Arthur had spent millions on this. The ballroom was packed with Wall Street investors, A-list celebrities, and the most ruthless beauty influencers in the industry. The camera panned over the crowd. I saw Margaret holding a glass of champagne, bragging to a senator's wife. She looked triumphant. At 6 p.m. sharp, the lights dimmed. Dramatic music swelled. Arthur walked onto the stage, bathed in a golden spotlight. He looked handsome, I had to admit. He was a born salesman. "Tonight," he boomed into the microphone, his voice smooth as silk, "we change the face of beauty forever. For centuries, humanity has searched for the fountain of youth. Tonight, I am telling you we found it." The crowd cheered. He held up a jar of the cream. The packaging was sleek, gold and white. It looked expensive. It looked safe. "I'd like to invite the face of Eterna, the lovely Kylie, to demonstrate the miracle live on stage." Kylie walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She sat in a white leather stylist chair. A makeup artist began applying the cream to her face, neck and décolletage. The camera zoomed in tight. "We believe in our product so much," Arthur said, "that I use it myself." He dipped his finger into the jar and applied a generous amount to his own forehead and cheeks, laughing. "Who says men can't glow?" The crowd ate it up. Even Margaret, sitting in the front row of the VIP section, dabbed some sample cream on her neck and cheeks, smiling for the cameras. "It tingles," Kylie exclaimed into her headset microphone. "I can feel it working. It feels tight. Firm." I watched the clock on my laptop. 6:15 p.m. The reaction time was roughly 1 hour. The countdown had begun. 40 minutes into the presentation, Arthur was taking questions from the press. The stock price of his company was skyrocketing in real time. I watched the ticker on the bottom of the screen. Up 20%. Up 40%. He was technically a billionaire on paper right now. "Yes, we plan to go public next month," he bragged, loosening his tie slightly. "The valuation is in the billions. This is just the beginning." On the screen, I saw Kylie scratch her cheek. It was a subtle movement. She tried to hide it, but then she rubbed her neck. "Is it hot in here?" Arthur asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. The stage lights were intense. "Can we get the AC up?" He wiped his forehead, smearing the cream. And that's when I saw it. Where he wiped, his skin didn't look right. It had a faint, greenish tint. Like a bruise. A murmur went through the crowd. "Mr. Vance," a reporter from Vogue asked, standing up. "Is that, are you okay? Your face." "What?" Arthur looked confused. He looked at the big screen behind him, which was projecting his face 10 feet tall. He saw himself. He froze. The cream on his forehead was turning a bright, swampy green. It was oxidizing rapidly now. At that exact moment, Kylie screamed, "My face! It's burning!" She clawed at her skin. The camera swung to her. The elegant cream had turned a deep, Oompa Loompa orange on her pale skin. The contrast was comical, horrific. And then the smell hit the room. I couldn't smell it from the coffee shop, obviously, but I saw the reaction. It rippled through the crowd like a wave. The people in the front row covered their noses. A woman in a Dior dress gagged. "It stinks," someone yelled near a microphone. "It smells like rotten eggs. It smells like sewage." Margaret stood up in the VIP section, trying to maintain order. "Everyone please," she shouted. But as she stood, the lights hit her face. She was a patchwork of green and orange blotches. She looked like a swamp monster in a Chanel suit. She knocked over her chair in panic. Panic erupted. The live stream chat went wild. User 123. OMG, is he turning green? Beauty queen, is this a prank? Or a chemical burn? Stockwatcher. Sell, sell, sell. The hashtag toxic cream started trending instantly, overtaking the official launch tag. Investors were running for the exits, covering their faces with handkerchiefs. Arthur was shouting into the mic, his voice cracking. Calm down. It's just a detox effect. It means the toxins are leaving the body. Detox? A man shouted. My wife is turning purple. Call a medic. It was chaos. Beautiful, absolute chaos. Arthur's face looked like a molding avocado. Kylie was sobbing, her orange tears staining her dress. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Arthur calling. I let it ring. I took a bite of my croissant. It was delicious. He called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Sophie, he screamed. He sounded like he was hyperventilating. What did you do? What is this? This. I asked calmly, watching him on the screen running backstage, holding the phone to his green ear. This is what happens when you skip the stability tests, Arthur. I tried to tell you in court. Batch 42 oxidizes. It releases sulfur gas. It's basic chemistry. Did you really think I kept the final formula on a shared drive? Fix it, he shrieked. Tell me the antidote. I'll pay you anything. The investors are going to kill me. There is no antidote, Arthur, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. It's a dye. It bonds to the keratin in the top layer of the epidermis. It will wear off in about 6 weeks, maybe 8. 6 weeks. But the smell? That might linger a bit longer. It seeps into the pores. I'll sue you, he roared. I'll destroy you. You can't, I reminded him, my voice ice cold. You won the court case this morning, remember? The judge was very clear. He declared that all intellectual property, including the formula you used tonight, belongs entirely to you. You legally own every molecule of that disaster. You own the green face. You own the smell. Congratulations on your victory, Arthur. You got exactly what you wanted. I hung up and blocked his number. A shadow fell over my table. I looked up. A man in a sharp gray suit was standing there. I recognized him immediately. It was David Sterling, the CEO of Luminous, the biggest competitor in the industry. He had been sitting in the back of the coffee shop, watching the same live stream. Ms. Vance, he asked. It's Ms. Miller, I corrected, using my maiden name. May I sit? He didn't wait for an answer. He sat down, looking at the chaos across the street. Ambulances were arriving now. I'm watching the stock market, he said, turning his tablet to me. Arthur's company stock had dropped 80% in 10 minutes. Brilliant sabotage. Or just incompetence on his part. A little of both, I smiled. He stole the wrong file. He stole the draft. I assumed as much, David said, looking at me with a newfound respect. I've been following your research for years, Sophie. I read your papers on peptide stability. I know you're the brain behind the product. I also know that a chemist of your caliber wouldn't make a mistake like that unless it was intentional. He leaned in closer. Do you have the real formula? The stable one. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a small blue flash drive. It was simple, unassuming. Project Eterna Final, I said. Safe, effective, shelf-stable for 2 years. And it smells like lavender and white tea. David smiled. It was the smile of a man who just found a diamond in the trash. He slid a contract across the table. It was already prepared. $50 million up front, he said. Plus 5% royalties on global sales. And a position as head of research and development at Luminous. Total creative control. No questions asked. I looked at the contract. It was everything I had ever wanted. Freedom. Recognition. Respect. I picked up a pen. Where do I sign? The fallout was catastrophic. Arthur's company declared bankruptcy 2 months later. The class action lawsuits were relentless. Every guest who had turned green or orange sued him for damages, emotional distress, and medical bills. The FDA launched an investigation and banned him from the industry for gross negligence. Arthur, Kylie, and Margaret became the laughingstock of the world. Memes of their green and orange faces flooded the internet. You couldn't scroll through Instagram without seeing a Shrek joke about my ex-husband. Kylie left Arthur the next day. She went on a talk show, crying, claiming she was a victim, but her modeling career was over. No luxury brand wanted a face associated with toxic sludge. Her skin eventually cleared up, but her reputation didn't. Margaret lost everything. She had leveraged her estate to fund Arthur's legal defense against me. And when the lawsuits hit, the bank took her mansion. She moved into a small apartment in Queens, far away from her high society friends who now pretended not to know her. Arthur. Well, Arthur hit rock bottom. He lost the penthouse, the cars, the watches. He was buried under millions of dollars in debt. 6 months later, I launched Renew with David's company. It was the exact formula I had meant to launch, just with a different name. It was the best-selling skincare product of the decade. I was on the cover of Forbes, not as someone's wife, but as an innovator. I bought my own lab, a real one, with my name on the glass doors. One rainy afternoon, I was leaving a restaurant downtown. I was waiting for the valet to bring my car. A man in a cheap, ill-fitting uniform jogged up, holding the keys. He looked older, tired, his face lined with stress. It was Arthur. He stopped when he saw me. He looked at my new car, my tailored coat, the diamond studs in my ears that I bought for myself. He froze, holding the keys to someone else's luxury life. "Sophie," he whispered. He looked like he wanted to say something. Maybe apologize. Maybe beg. I didn't say a word. I just took the keys from his hand. I reached into my purse and pulled out a $20 bill. "Keep the change," I said. I got into my car and drove away, watching him shrink in the rearview mirror, until he was just a small, insignificant dot in the rain. He had won the court case. He had taken the house and the money. But I had won the war. And the sweetest part? I didn't have to lift a finger. I just let him destroy himself with his own greed. If this story satisfied your craving for justice, smash that like button and share it with everyone you know. Comment below. Do you think Arthur deserved 6 weeks of a green face? Or was I too harsh? And don't forget to subscribe. Karma is science, friends. Action and reaction. And sometimes, the reaction is explosive. I'll see you in the next video.